Every society is shaped by a foundation of beliefs, customs, and values that define how its people understand the world around them. For the Igbo people of southeastern Nigeria, that foundation is deeply rooted in what is known as Ọdịnala na Omenala, a comprehensive system that blends spiritual beliefs with cultural traditions and social responsibilities. Ọdịnala refers to the natural laws and spiritual order believed to be inherent in the universe, while Omenala covers the customs, behaviors, and cultural practices passed down through generations. Together, they represent the guiding principles of Igbo life, regulating not only spiritual practices, but also ethical conduct, community engagement, and relationships with nature. The importance of understanding indigenous systems like Ọdịnala na Omenala goes beyond historical interest. These systems offer insights into how traditional societies created meaning, sustained social order, and fostered community resilience. Long before the emergence of centralized governments or formal religions, Igbo communities operated through a balance of unwritten laws, moral codes, and communal agreements rooted in this worldview. In this documentary, we'll explore how Ọdịnala na Omenala functions, not as a frozen set of beliefs from the past, but as a living system that adapts to context while preserving its core values. We'll examine how concepts like personal identity, community leadership, justice, and harmony with nature are integrated into this framework. Through this journey, we aim to illuminate the structure and significance of a system that has remained relevant in various forms across generations. Some key areas we'll explore include the cosmological structure of Ọdịnala and its view of the universe, the role of Kai personal spirit in shaping one's path and responsibilities, how social values and taboos maintain communal balance, the cultural importance of rituals, symbols, and observances, the continuing relevance of these practices in contemporary society. Our goal is not to advocate or compare belief systems, but to provide a respectful and well-researched overview that fosters understanding. By studying Ọdịnala na Omenala, we not only engage with an essential part of Igbo identity, but also appreciate the depth and complexity of African indigenous knowledge systems. This is an opportunity to view traditional knowledge through a clear and objective lens, recognizing its historical significance, social function, and ongoing contribution to cultural identity. Whether you are a student of history, a member of the Igbo community, or simply curious about African civilizations, this documentary will offer valuable insights into a worldview that has shaped lives for centuries. Let us begin this journey of exploration through the rich, structured, and enduring legacy of Ọdịnala na Omenala Ndị Igbo. At the heart of every indigenous knowledge system is a cosmology, a way of understanding the origin, order, and structure of the universe. In Ọdịnala, the traditional belief system of the Igbo cosmology provides a spiritual and philosophical framework for interpreting existence, guiding actions, and maintaining social and environmental balance. The concept of Chukwu is central in Igbo cosmology, often translated as the Great Spirit or Supreme Being. Chukwu is regarded as the ultimate source of all creation. Chukwu is seen not only as the origin of life, but as the force that sustains it, present in the rhythms of nature and the progression of time. Unlike many theistic portrayals in other cultures, Chukwu is not personified, but is revered as a universal principle, omnipresent, unchangeable, and beyond human limitations. From Chukwu emanates Ki, which represents the individual's spiritual essence or destiny. Every person is believed to possess their own Chi, which acts as their inner guide throughout life. Chi is personal and unique, playing a role in shaping a person's path, inclinations, and outcomes. In traditional practice, understanding and aligning with one's Kai is seen as vital to personal fulfillment and well-being. It explains why life paths differ and why success is not uniformly distributed, even within the same family or community. Between the Supreme Being and humanity exists a category of spiritual forces known as odds. These are not deities in the sense of being worshipped independently, but rather they are considered manifestations of Chukwu's will, assigned to oversee various aspects of nature and human experience. Examples include spirits associated with the earth, rivers, thunder, and fertility, each aldot as connected to a specific domain and often to a particular locality. The interaction with these forces is done with a sense of reverence and balance, and often involves cultural rituals that are context-dependent. Central to this cosmological framework is the role of Ani, also known as Allah, who represents the earth and is associated with morality, land, and community well-being. Ani is considered the spiritual embodiment of the land itself, making her central to questions of ownership, agriculture, and justice. Taboos, known as Ani, are offenses against the natural and social order. Observing these taboos was, and in many places still is, an essential part of maintaining peace and harmony in the community. Violations are believed to disrupt balance and require reconciliation through traditional processes. Another important element is the recognition of Yubo, the world, as a dynamic, interconnected reality. In Igbo thought, existence is not limited to the visible or material realm. Life continues beyond physical death in what is referred to as Ala the land of spirits. Ancestors who lived good and honorable lives are believed to transition to this realm, where they may continue to influence and support their descendants. This belief underscores the principle of continuity between the living and the departed, shaping how death and legacy are understood. What's especially notable about this cosmology is its integrative nature. There is no separation between the spiritual and the physical, or between the individual and the community. Everything is linked through a web of reciprocal relationships. A person is expected to live in alignment with their Kai, their community's values, and the natural environment. Rituals and ceremonies are not isolated religious acts, but are embedded in daily life, reinforcing identity, solidarity, and responsibility. In practical terms, this worldview informs agriculture, governance, justice, and social roles. For example, planting and harvesting times are often guided by traditional calendars that account for spiritual factors. Leadership structures, such as councils of elders or titled men and women, incorporate spiritual oversight. Dispute resolution often includes appeasement rituals that aim to restore not just interpersonal peace but cosmic balance. Ọdịnala cosmology also embraces the concept of cyclical time, where life events are seen as part of broader rhythms rather than linear progressions. This perspective influences attitudes toward birth, naming, maturity, and death, each of which is marked by specific cultural rites that reinforce community cohesion and spiritual alignment. Overall, the cosmology of Ọdịnala is not static or dogmatic. It is a living system, transmitted through oral traditions, proverbs, songs, and rituals. Its strength lies in its adaptability and its deep connection to local environments and community needs. By understanding this cosmology, one gains not only insight into Igbo spirituality, but also a broader appreciation for how traditional African societies created complex, sustainable systems of knowledge and practice. Every organized society relies on a framework of laws and ethical principles to maintain order, promote cooperation, and resolve conflict. In Igbo traditional society, this framework was not written in books or codified by centralized authority. Instead, it was lived, spoken, observed, and passed down as part of Ọdịnala, now Omenala. Omenala, a system that wove spirituality, morality, and communal values into everyday life. Omenala, meaning what is done in the land, refers to the customs and expected behaviors that governed Igbo society. These customs were not arbitrary. They were informed by centuries of observation, dialogue, and shared experience. While details could vary between villages or clans, the underlying principles remain consistent: respect for others, fairness, communal responsibility, and balance with the natural world. The laws of the land were enforced through Neso Ani, or taboos, acts considered violations of the moral and spiritual order maintained by Ani, the earth spirit. These taboos could involve actions that harmed individuals, disrupted social harmony, or disrespected sacred spaces. Examples include unjust violence, theft, desecration of farmland, or failure to uphold community obligations. Importantly, these were not merely religious rules, they were ethical standards tied to real consequences, both social and environmental. When a taboo was broken, it wasn't only the individual who was affected, it was believed that the entire community could suffer from spiritual imbalance. Therefore, restoration was not punitive but restorative. The goal was to re-establish harmony through appropriate rituals, apologies, and sometimes material compensation. Elders, family heads, and spiritual custodians played key roles in guiding this process. It was less about punishment and more about making things right, with people, with the land, and with the spiritual forces connected to community life. One of the most powerful expressions of law and ethics in Igbo culture is the concept of Ife, Momu right conduct. This covers not only avoiding wrongdoing, but actively practicing good behavior. It includes honesty in speech, humility in leadership, diligence in work, and generosity toward others. Children were taught these values through storytelling, proverbs, and the examples set by elders. Every act, private or public, was understood to have spiritual significance and communal impact. An equally important concept is Ifu na Ogu, a traditional ethical and legal principle often invoked during conflict resolution. F represents truth, justice, and ancestral authority. It is symbolized by a sacred staff carried by titled elders and lineage leaders. Ogu, on the other hand, represents innocence or moral rightness. When someone declared, "I stand on Ofenagu," it meant they were speaking or acting with clean hands and a clear conscience. It was a serious affirmation binding both spiritually and socially, with communal implications if falsely invoked. Conflict resolution in traditional Igbo society was guided not by formal courts but by councils of elders, family meetings, and community assemblies. Disputes were resolved through dialogue, storytelling, appeals to precedent, and when necessary, ritual reconciliation. The emphasis was on finding a solution that preserved peace and restored trust rather than assigning blame or creating winners and losers. This process not only resolved the conflict at hand, but reinforced social norms and mutual accountability. The ethical systems of Ọdịnala also extended into economic and political life. Market honesty was strongly emphasized, with those caught cheating often facing public disgrace or exclusion. Leadership roles, such as village heads or titled elders, were expected to uphold justice, fairness, and transparency. A leader's moral standing was as important as their strategic ability, and unethical behavior could lead to social rejection or loss of status. Athera came with the responsibility to serve, not to dominate. Another key ethical value in Ọdịnala is communal responsibility. Individual success was always viewed in the context of community welfare. People were expected to care for their neighbors, contribute to communal projects, and support those in need. Wealth was to be shared, and status came with duties, not just privileges. This sense of mutual obligation helped build trust, reduce inequality, and reinforce social cohesion. The success of one was seen as the success of all. Rites of passage also played a critical role in ethical development. From childhood through adulthood, individuals underwent ceremonies that marked their growth and reminded them of their responsibilities. Initiation into adulthood was not just symbolic, it was an ethical commitment to live with honor, serve the community, and protect its values. Even in death, people were remembered not for their wealth but for their character and the positive impact they had on others. And stores were revered as models of virtuous living, reinforcing ethical standards across generations. Despite its oral nature, the ethical framework of Ọdịnala is internally consistent and highly sophisticated. It offers a model where law is not imposed from above, but grows from within, shaped by the values, experiences, and spiritual insights of the community. It teaches that Justice is not just about rules, but about relationships. That law is not separate from life, but embedded in it. Moral behavior is both a personal duty and a communal expectation. By exploring the laws and ethics of Ọdịnala, we gain a deeper appreciation for how traditional societies created durable systems of order and morality rooted not in fear or force, but in responsibility, wisdom, and the pursuit of harmony with self, society, and nature. In any culture, rituals serve as bridges connecting the visible and the invisible, the physical and the spiritual, the personal and the communal. Within Ọdịnala na Omenala and Igbo, rituals are not just ceremonial acts, they are structured expressions of belief, identity, and belonging. From birth to death, rituals shape every phase of life, reinforcing moral values, preserving tradition, and invoking blessings. Each ritual is deeply symbolic, rooted in local context, and informed by generations of experience. One of the most recognizable ritual elements in Igbo tradition is the kolanut ceremony. More than a gesture of hospitality, the offering and breaking of kola, nut, haftamba, a jade symbolizes respect, unity, and invocation of goodwill. Kola nut is presented to guests, elders, and deities as a sacred act of recognition and peace. In spiritual contexts, it serves as a medium of communication with ancestors and spiritual forces. The way the nut breaks, the number of lobes revealed, and the hand that presents it all carry encoded meanings that the community understands and honors. Another important practice is libation, or manya, which involves pouring liquid, often palm wine or water, onto the ground while invoking ancestors or spiritual forces. This act acknowledges those who came before and invites their presence in communal or personal events. Libation is typically performed during naming ceremonies, festivals, family gatherings, and other rites of passage. It is a moment of reflection and reverence, affirming the continuity between past and present, and showing gratitude to the unseen world. Initiations also play a significant role in the Ọdịnala framework, particularly as individuals transition between life stages. These rites mark key milestones, such as puberty, adulthood, marriage, and elderhood. Initiation is not only a communal celebration, but a spiritual and social responsibility. It prepares the individual for their new role within the community, introducing them to specific values, expectations, and sometimes specialized knowledge. For example, certain age grade or titled societies require formal initiation before members can participate in decision-making or ceremonial functions. These rituals symbolize rebirth into a new identity and are accompanied by teachings, oaths, and symbols of commitment. In Igbo spiritual life, sacred symbols and objects act as vessels of meaning and tools of connection. Items like a sacred staff representing truth and ancestral authority, are held by elders to legitimize decisions and invoke moral clarity. Maichu mintigo, maidaneni rika no. Other symbolic items such as feathers, white, chalk, no clay, and raffia are used in rituals to signify purity, communication with the spiritual realm, or alignment with tradition. These objects are not magical in themselves. Their power comes from the cultural meanings and ethical responsibilities they represent. Handling them requires understanding and respect. Shrines known as Skofla Arfries or Obi in different contexts are physical spaces where spiritual interactions occur. These locations may honor ancestors, household spirits, or natural forces. They are usually simple in form, but rich in symbolism. Offerings placed at shrines, such as yams, kola, or fowl, are acts of appreciation and requests for guidance or intervention. Shrines serve both communal and personal purposes, functioning as places for prayer, reflection, and consultation. They are typically maintained by custodians, often elders or spiritual specialists, who ensure that rituals are performed correctly and respectfully. Festivals in the Igbo calendar, such as New Yam Festival, Ariji Haro, or Vala, combine ritual, celebration, and cultural expression. Teaser festivals are community-wide rituals that involve dance, music, attire, and ceremonial acts that honor both the divine and human order. They are times to renew social bonds, resolve conflicts, and celebrate shared values. Through public rituals, festivals reinforce identity and continuity, blending spirituality with social cohesion in ways that are both structured and joyful. Collectively, these rituals, initiations, and sacred symbols form the spiritual language of Ọdịnala. They teach, they guide, and they remind. The specific practices may vary from one village to another. The core principle remains that human beings exist within a larger web of relationships with nature, with the spirit world, and with one another. To participate in ritual is to acknowledge these relationships and to act in a way that nurtures balance, respect, and continuity across generations. As the Igbo world encountered new global influences in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, profound transformations began to shape the spiritual and cultural landscape. Trade, formal education, new political systems, and the introduction of world religions, most notably Christianity, ushered in a period of deep transition. These changes did not occur in isolation, but alongside long-standing indigenous values and practices. Within this evolving context, Ọdịnala and Omenala began to interact with new belief systems and social frameworks. Missionaries and educators introduced new teachings and worldviews that resonated with many, particularly through literacy, community organization, and access to broader networks. As these teachings spread, certain aspects of traditional life gradually gave way to new expressions of faith and morality. However, rather than completely displacing traditional practices, this encounter often led to a blending and reinterpretation of both worlds. In many communities, core Igbo values, such as respect for elders, communal responsibility, and reverence for ancestry continued, even if expressed through different rituals or redefined language. Elements of Dala remained subtly woven into daily life. Greetings still carried symbolic weight, kolanut breaking retained its place in gatherings, and festivals continued to mark the cycles of life and nature. This period also saw the quiet preservation of traditional knowledge by elders, custodians, and culture bearers. While public expressions may have changed, the essence of many customs remained intact, passed down in stories, songs, proverbs, and family practices. Even today, many families maintain a balance between inherited traditions and adopted faiths, reflecting the unique dual identity that has emerged over time. The result is not a simple loss, but a layered evolution. Igbo culture has shown great resilience and adaptability, finding ways to retain its foundational principles even amid change. The sacred, in many ways, adapted rather than disappeared, finding new language, new forms, and new expressions suited to the times. Understanding this chapter of transformation allows for a more complete appreciation of Igbo heritage. It reminds us that cultural identity is not static, but dynamic. It evolves, absorbs, and responds. And in this continuity of memory and meaning, the spirit of Dala still finds ways to speak, quietly, patiently, and profoundly. In the rhythm of time, cultures evolve, not by abandoning their roots, but by adapting their wisdom to new realities. Across Igbo communities today, there is a growing appreciation for the values, philosophies, and practices that have long defined their way of life. This renewal is not about returning to the past exactly as it was, but about recognizing the enduring relevance of ancestral knowledge in shaping identity, values, and community life. Among many, there is a quiet reawakening of interest in the principles of Ọdịnala, the deep respect for nature, the honoring of elders, the importance of family ties, and the emphasis on truth, justice, and harmony. These values continue to inspire reflection and guide conduct in everyday life, from how communities resolve disputes to how they celebrate milestones. In recent years, cultural education initiatives, both formal and informal, have helped younger generations reconnect with traditional practices. Through language programs, festivals, heritage centers, and storytelling, families and educators are working together to ensure that Igbo customs and beliefs remain part of the collective memory. Elders play a vital role in this effort, passing down their insights and experiences with patience and care. Creative expressions such as music, dance, craft, and attire also reflect this cultural vitality. Festivals like Reg New Yam Festival remain central to community life, blending celebration with meaning. Masquerades still enliven town squares, reminding all of the beauty and depth of Igbo artistic traditions. In such gatherings, culture is not only remembered, it is lived. Modern tools have also played a role in supporting this continuity. Books, documentaries, community forums, and educational media have made it easier to share stories, values, and practices once passed mainly through oral tradition. These resources offer accessible ways for people, especially the young, to engage with heritage in respectful and informed ways. Importantly, this renewal honors diversity within tradition. Igbo customs vary from village to village, family to family. Yet within that variety lies a shared spirit, the belief that life is interconnected, that ancestors deserve remembrance, and that cultural practices are a source of strength and identity. In this ongoing journey, Ọdịnala na Omenala remain touchstones of meaning. They offer pathways for understanding one's place in the world, not only as individuals but as members of a larger community that spans generations. As each generation builds upon the last, the values of respect, balance, and continuity continue to find new expression. The past is not forgotten, it becomes a guide. The traditions are not relics, they are resources. And the future of Igbo heritage lies not in preserving it unchanged, but in carrying it forward with dignity and respect. Generations. Through rituals, relationships, and the language of the sacred, the Igbo people affirm who they are and where they come from. Today, the journey continues, not in isolation, but in continuity, from village compounds to urban centers, from Nigeria to the diaspora. The values of balance, respect, and community still shine. Each step taken in remembrance becomes a step toward the renewal.